People on the internet seem to think that Dublin has lost its soul to expensive pints and tourist traps, but I don't think that's true. I think if you scratch the surface and look past the gift shops, you'll find a really cool underground city that's got loads more to offer. I'm in Dublin for the next 48 hours and I have set myself a challenge. I want to see if I can visit 10 of the most iconic landmarks that everybody thinks of when they think of Dublin, but I also want to see if I can find 10 secret things that nobody really knows about or don't necessarily think about straight away. And then I'm going to pit them against each other and see which is better. What do you think is going to win? Iconic or secret? There's only one way to find out. Let's go. I'm starting the clock here at Trinity College, which was founded in 1592, which makes it the oldest university in Ireland. Most people come here to see the Book of Kells, which I would also love to do. However, I am a girl on a budget and I don't want to spend €25 to go inside a library. So what we are going to do instead is enjoy the courtyard and the architecture for free. Two minutes away is the statue of Molly Malone. Superstition says that touching the statue will bring you luck. However, the superstition does not state where on the statue you need to touch her. So the fact that everybody goes for the chest is a choice. Moral of the story, don't be creepy.
God knows where. Holidays felt no. Holidays there. There in the night. But I ain't got wings.
Having successfully navigated the horrors of public statues, it was time to find my first secret location. Tucked away on Lincoln Place sits Sweny's Pharmacy. It was made famous by a book called Ulysses, which was written by James Joyce and is widely considered a masterpiece by people who want you to think that they read books. Now, this is the part of the video where I was supposed to show you the beautiful historic interior. I went inside, I did the tour, and I completely forgot to press record on my POV cam. So here's a couple of photos I've nicked off Google, and you're just going to have to use your imagination. So, did secret location number 1 win? No, because it doesn't exist on my hard drive, so Team Iconic wins this round by default, purely because I managed to actually press record while standing in front of a giant bronze chest. Moving on. Rome has gladiators, Egypt has mummies, Dublin has bog bodies. We're going in here to see Iron Age kings who were ritually sacrificed and thrown into peat bogs over 2,000 years ago. The peat preserved them so well that you can still see their fingerprints. It sounds grim, but we definitely have to go and check it out. Determined to finally score a point for Team Secret, I headed to Anne's Lane. On the internet, this alleyway is famous for having a canopy of beautifully bright, colourful umbrellas floating majestically in the air, creating a whimsical wonderland for people who base their entire personality on social media. In reality, it was February, the umbrellas were faded, dripping with sad Irish rain, and hanging over a row of commercial wheelie bins. It was so utterly depressing I didn't even bother filming it, so just close your eyes and imagine sadness instead. Determined to stop Team Iconic from completely walking away with the competition, I tracked down Dublin Castle. But instead of looking for the posh bits where politicians shake hands, I went round the back to find the actual secret origin of the entire city. This is the medieval record tower. It's been surviving Irish rain since 1204, and it's currently surviving me because I've had to tilt my camera at a weird angle to hide all the scaffolding. Behind it is the Dublin Garden, named after a dark pool where Vikings parked their longships. It translates to Black Pool, meaning the capital of Ireland is named after a medieval swamp. And that's where our tour ends, because if I pan any further left, you're going to see a massive yellow digger and a bunch of chain link fence. So does Team Secret get a point? Yes, because unlike the pharmacy, I did press record, but it's a sympathy point because the whole place looks like an active building site. The heavens have just absolutely opened as I've made my way over here, and if I'm being quite honest with you, I think I deserve a pint, so let's go. I tried to split the G, but I didn't even make it past the Golden Harp. An absolute bureaucratic disaster. Determined to get a point for my own dignity, I tried again. And I failed again. To numb the pain of my defeats, I headed to a retro arcade called Token to find some food and a third pint of stout. It's dark, loud, and full of flashing buttons, which is exactly how I like my despair. Good morning. I'm still in Dublin. It's still raining, but we're having fun anyway. My first stop of the day is here, which is Kilmainham Gaol. Normally when a place is this popular, I'm a little bit wary of it, but this is not a tourist trap. This is actually the jail where the leaders of the 1916 uprising were executed. So it is heavy, there's a lot of history, but you really can't understand Dublin without coming here. Opened in 1796, this is a remarkably bleak prison designed so that you're always being watched. Sadly, filming is banned inside, so you'll have to look at these dramatic photos instead. Fun fact, it had no window glass for 50 years because governors thought freezing air would literally blow the crime out of inmates' brains. Directly across from the jail are the formal grounds of the Irish Museum of Modern Art. It's a really beautiful place to just come and sit and reflect and have a little bit of peace and quiet away from the hustle and bustle of the main part of the city. See, I'm from Manchester. I'm used to the rain. But this is starting to feel like a personal attack now. It's relentless. This archway is the last survivor of the original medieval city walls. Back in the day, the locals nicknamed this the Gate of Hell, mostly due to the brothels that ran down the alleyway, but also because there's supposedly a ghost that haunts these steps. This is St Patrick's Cathedral. Founded in 1191, it is the national cathedral of Ireland and a massive towering chunk of Gothic architecture built to honour the man who allegedly chased all the snakes out of the country, presumably because they didn't have passports. Tucked away inside Whitefriar Street Church is a gold box containing the heart and remains of St Valentine. He was an ancient Roman priest executed in the 3rd century for secretly marrying Christian couples against the emperor's orders, making him the absolute pioneer of the expensive destination wedding. He ended up in Dublin because his remains were gifted to an Irish priest by Pope Gregory XVI in 1836 as a thank you present for giving some exceptionally good sermons in Rome. The church actually managed to completely misplace the patron saint of love in their storage rooms for nearly a century, before finally rediscovering him during some building renovations in the 1950s. This is George's Street Arcade. Opened in 1881, it was Ireland's very first purpose-built shopping centre, designed to give 19th century locals a grand enclosed space to browse markets away from the elements. The public originally absolutely hated it. The wealthy developers hired British architects and builders to construct the market, which went down incredibly poorly with the local Dublin community. To make matters worse, the original building completely burned to the ground in a massive fire in 1892. When it was rebuilt 2 years later, the developers finally employed local Irish craftsmen, creating the iconic indoor market that still stands today. This is Powerscourt Townhouse. Completed in 1774, it's a massive Georgian mansion built out of solid granite by a wealthy lord who essentially wanted a giant, upscale party house in the middle of the city to show off his wealth. When it was being constructed, Lord Powerscourt got into a massive petty argument with the man who owned the land directly across the street. To get revenge, the neighbour waited until the mansion was completely finished and then intentionally leased out all of his land to smelly, loud fishmongers right opposite the front door, just to ruin the Lord's fancy view. It was widely considered to be one of the most beautifully executed acts of spite in Irish history. This is the Temple Bar, a bright red pub that functions as the gravitational centre of Dublin's tourism industry. In the 1970s, the State Transport Company actually bought up the entire neighbourhood with plans to flatten all the historic buildings and replace them with a massive bus depot. While they waited for permission, they rented the shops out to artists, vintage stores and alternative markets on cheap leases. This accidentally turned the area into a thriving cultural hotspot, forcing the government to scrap the bus depot entirely. So if you enjoy paying nearly €10 for a pint of Guinness today, you have an abandoned bus station to thank for it. So, I don't know what it is about the city break gods, but apparently they don't like me very much. Because every single time I go somewhere, it doesn't matter which city it is, it doesn't matter if it's my first time there, it doesn't matter if I've been there before. You can guarantee that the majority of things I want to film will be covered in scaffolding. And I have to film at strategic angles to try and hide the scaffolding and make it look prettier than it currently looks. However, today, I'm currently overstimulated and I'm not in the mood. So you're just gonna have to deal with the reality of scaffolding being all over this building, I'm afraid. This massive structure is the Four Courts. Opened in 1802, it serves as the absolute centre of the Irish legal system, built out of heavy stone so that lawyers could have plenty of space to argue about pieces of paper. During the Irish Civil War in 1922, the building was used to store the National Archives. It was eventually bombarded, triggering a massive explosion that blew 1,000 years of irreplaceable Irish history into the sky. Local records say that bits of centuries-old court documents rained down over the streets of Dublin for days, which at least gave the locals something more interesting to read rather than the weather forecast. This is the General Post Office, which opened in 1818 so people could send letters to each other before the invention of the angry email. It's a massive iconic landmark, but it's most famous for being the headquarters of the 1916 Easter Rising, when Irish rebels took over the building to declare independence from Britain, resulting in a massive shootout that left the front pillars permanently full of bullet holes. Inside the main hall sits Ireland's most famous statue, the Death of Cuchulainn. It was chosen as the official memorial for the 1916 rebels, making it a deeply important piece of history. Unfortunately, I can't actually show you what it looks like because a bloke stood directly in front of it the entire time I was here. He was there when I walked in, and he was still there after I spent an hour inside the museum. I can only assume that he was also part of the exhibition. The museum inside holds an original copy of the Proclamation of the Irish Republic. When the rebels printed it in secret, they actually ran out of the letter E because they didn't have enough printing type, so they had to patch it together using mismatched font pieces from different kits, proving that even historic revolutions can suffer from technical formatting issues. Good morning. Yes, despite what that looks like, this is the morning. I am still in Dublin, and surprise, surprise, it is still raining. Anyway, I'm on my way to hopefully try and find some deer. I want to be there early. However, I could have mistimed this completely, and I could be there so early that it's still dark. But we'll see what it looks like when I get there. Okay, bye. also misjudged my timings with going to try and find the deer, because as you can see, it's still quite dark, and I don't want to go into the park in the dark. So I'm just kind of loitering, but I saw a little cafe down here that appeared to be open, so I'm gonna go see if I can get a hot chocolate. I went to what I thought was a cafe. Not a cafe, it's a Subway / newsagents / coffee shop. However, I've got a hot chocolate. Look how big it is. It's good, it's caramel. I'm very aware I look like a floating head at the moment. The weather's appalling. You're just going to have to deal with it. I'm very sorry. So it's now 7:30 a.m. As you can see, I was going to say the sun's come up, but that's the wrong turn of phrase. The lighting has increased. I'm now here in Phoenix Park, which is one of the biggest enclosed parks in Europe. And I am on the hunt for the wild fallow deer that live in the park. I think I'm still a little way out from where they're usually spotted at the moment, because there is quite a busy road that runs down the middle of the park. So obviously they're not going to be near the busy road. But I believe if I take a left turn up ahead and head further into the park, I will be near one of the areas where they are normally spotted. So we'll keep our eyes peeled and our fingers crossed. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's peaceful, but also a little bit sketch. So, currently walking through the park, and I would just like to bring to your attention the size of this bird's nest. What the f*** is that? Look at the size of it! The f*** nesting in that? A f***ing eagle! Jesus Christ! Oh, maybe it was the Irish equivalent of Mothman. Does Ireland have a Mothman? Because if they're not aware of it, I think I just found. Update, I am getting closer. Dear. That one should have said. Update, I am getting closer. Deer poop. Pretend there is deer poop on the floor. Okay, thank you, goodbye. I am still yet to find deer. I have found squirrels, and I've asked the squirrels if they know where the deers are, but they're not giving up the information. Apparently, they only give out information about deers in exchange for nuts, which I don't have. Do you know what's ridiculous? There's signs everywhere saying, please don't feed the deer. There's a fat chance of that. I haven't seen a deer. I'm getting miffed off. But it doesn't help that there's just roads everywhere in the middle of the park. Like, the park's just full of really busy roads that go straight through the middle of it in like there's a busy road over here. See the cars? There's a busy road over that side. Over that. On the other side of the trees, there's another busy road. You see, there's a car just gone past me here. All right, there's cars everywhere. There are cars everywhere. Why would there be deer near the things that kill them? I think it's a ruse. I don't think there's any deer in this park. I think they've lied to people to make people come to the park. I'm getting really angry at the rain, can you tell? So, in my anger at the rain yesterday, I did some Googling, and it turns out that in January, it rained for 26 of the 31 days, and so far in February, it has rained every single day. So I am correct to be angry, because this is excessive amounts of rain even for Dublin. Hello, it's me again, everybody's favourite floating head. I'm just coming in with a life tip. if you plan to visit Dublin, and during your visit to Dublin, you want to come to Phoenix Park, and on the day of your visit to Phoenix Park, it has been raining for 13 consecutive days, may I suggest to you perhaps walking boots or wellies? What I would not suggest is the one pair of footwear that I have brought with me, because I only packed the rucksack that is currently on my back. Mistakes were made. This looks like a nice quiet area, Wednesday. I'm sure you'll find some deer around there. Cars. Cars everywhere. There's cars everywhere. I've literally been walking around this park for about an hour and a half now, and all I've seen is deer. I don't even know if it was deer, it was just. The book stops here. Don't feed our deer. I mean, to be fair, if I was a deer and I'd been getting rained on for the past 2 weeks, I'd be off and I'd probably be trying to find somewhere relatively dry. So maybe they're all hiding in a part of the park that I haven't walked through for the past hour and a half, although I've checked on Google Maps and I have literally gone from one. As I was saying, I have checked Google Maps and I have literally gone from one side of the park to the other, and I haven't seen sod all, apart from an excessive amount of cars. But yeah, Dublin Zoo is down towards the entrance of this park, so I might not go to the seaside. I might just go to the zoo, because at least then I'm guaranteed to see some animals. Why are there some shoes in a tree? That's incredibly ominous. Who's walking around barefoot and why have they left their shoes there like that? I've just found a park ranger and I asked if he'd seen the deer yet today, and he said, yeah, they're all taking shelter in that woodland, pointing me over in that direction, which I'm now walking towards. And I said, yes, taking shelter, like sensible people should be. And then he laughed at me and said, yes. Do you know what? The deer may be stubborn, but I'm stubborn, more stubborn. I'm more stubborn. I'm the most stubborn. I'm Scorpio. I will find these deer if it takes me all day and I have to catch pneumonia to do it. Somebody tell the deer they'd be bored, I will find them. I don't want to speak too soon, but I'm feeling optimistic about this part of the park. The roads are quite far away, and there appears to be dense woodland. Keep my eyes peeled. You see that? You see that path? That's the path I'm supposed to be walking on. I've spent the past almost 3 hours walking around this park in the rain, gradually catching pneumonia, all to try and find some deer. I'm now currently on my way to the zoo, which is back down the way that I came into the park, funnily enough, at the entrance, which is funnily enough at the complete opposite end to where I ended up before. Now, as I'm walking back down towards the zoo, I happen to look up, and what do I see? deers. Lots of them. Just out in the open. Do you know what's better? Literally next to a road. I hate my life. You know what makes it even better, don't you? I've spent all this... I've spent all morning walking around. I genuinely could cry. I'm so cold. I've spent all morning walking around this park saying, they're not going to be near the road, there's too many cars, they're not going to be near the road, why would they be near the road? Why would they be near the road? Look, there's the deer. There's a van. Ah. Sorry, dear. I didn't scare them. They're still chilling, it's fine. So there they are, fallow deer. They were brought to Ireland by the Normans in the 13th century, presumably because the Normans thought the landscape lacked a native animal that could stand in the freezing rain looking smug. Today the herd lives completely wild within the park boundaries, which apparently includes the exact stretch of grass right next to the road where I started 3 hours ago. Right next to the deer is Dublin Zoo, which opened in 1831, making it one of the oldest zoos in the world. By this point, I was so cold, wet, and thoroughly miserable that I completely refused to film any video, so instead, please enjoy this rapid sequence of photographs of animals who also look like they were questioning their life choices in the Irish climate. Having survived the rain, I sought shelter at Collins Barracks, which was built in 1702 so that soldiers would have somewhere imposing to stand around in uniform. It is believed to be the longest serving army base in the world, which means it saw nearly 3 centuries of people aggressively marching in straight lines before the military finally packed up and moved out in 1997 so that civilians could look at old furniture. So, Team Iconic wins the Dublin Championship by a single point, but while the Icons won the emotional battle, here is exactly how much money it cost to lose my mind in the Irish capital. In total, 2 nights at Generator Dublin and all activities came to £174.11. Most of the historic culture was completely free, though the real financial tragedy of the weekend was Phoenix Park, which not only cost me my dignity, but also £41 in emergency trauma merch. So... this is the glamour of travel vlogging. I have just had to buy a pair of emergency socks and an emergency t-shirt and go and get changed in a toilet cubicle at the airport because I was still absolutely soaked from walking around the park this morning. So I spent 3 hours walking in circles, only to find the deer at the exact spot where I started at 7:30 this morning. And the little cherry on top, the pièce de résistance, is that I've just had to get changed in a toilet cubicle at the airport. So who gets the last laugh here? Me, not the deer. Dublin has well and truly humbled me. I came here looking for hidden spots and aesthetic vibes. And instead I am leaving looking like a drowned rat after being mocked by a herd of deer. But would I have it any other way? No, I wouldn't, because I still had a great time and I've experienced things that I wouldn't have experienced at home. And that's all that matters really, isn't it? Also, that deer footage, priceless. But anyway, I'm about to go and board my flight. I'm very much looking forward to getting home and turning the heating on full blast and crawling into bed. If you've enjoyed this utter descent into madness, please subscribe and I will see you on my next adventure. Bye.
Good evening, you're all very welcome on our latest flight EI610 to Amsterdam. This is a pre-board announcement only for any customers requesting any extra time or assistance. Any customers traveling with infants come forward now for boarding at gate 41.